Hey everyone, welcome to the reading of my essay, The Metaphysical Case for Love. This is part 3, and this part is titled, Love is a Truth Procedure. Of course, this is a part of a broader essay. I'll leave a link to the full essay in the description down below. Also, I'm doing this playlist on YouTube for those that prefer listening or watching over reading the essay. And as I said, this is part 3. I'll leave a link to the playlist down below too if you want to listen to part 1 and 2. Alright, without further ado, let's get started. Love is a truth procedure. Do we know what we want? We don't. Even if we think we do, they don't spontaneously appear ex nihilo. But society and culture tells us what to want. You're bombarded with the demands to have goals, dreams, ambitions, etc. and are sold superficial solutions to get them. But the problem never was how to get what you wanted, but what to want in the first place. How then can we ever authentically be in love? It's only through accepting our inauthenticity as individuals. If one partakes in the act of loving, it has to be approached from a place of lostness and mystery. Love starts with acknowledging two lovers' alienation, not just from each other, but even from themselves. Such is also why a relationship is never in the past, but lies in the infinite presence of loving in the here and now, as love is an event that brings eternity into one's immediate life. Although bringing eternity into the immediate doesn't mean one is in eternal modo, the view from God, that is, being omniscient and knowing what to do in a precise moment, because in the finite life, every decision will create regret. Yet, we have no choice but to choose, as indecision is the worst of all decisions. Kierkegaard, of course, knew this best. As he writes quite famously in Either Or, if you marry, you will regret it. If you do not marry, you will also regret it. If you marry or if you do not marry, you will regret both. Whether you marry or do not marry, you will regret both. Laugh at the world's follies, you will regret it. Weep over them, you will also regret it. If you laugh at the world's follies or if you weep over them, you will regret both. Whether you laugh at the world's follies or weep over them, you will regret both. Believe in a girl, you will regret it. If you do not believe her, you will also regret it. If you believe a girl or you do not believe her, you will regret both. Whether you believe a girl or you do not believe her, you will regret both. If you hang yourself, you will regret it. If you do not hang yourself, you will regret it. If you hang yourself or you do not hang yourself, you will regret both. Whether you hang yourself or you do not hang yourself, you will regret both. This, gentlemen, is a sum of all practical wisdom. It isn't just in single moments that I view everything eternal modo, as Spinoza says. I am constantly eternal modo. Many people think that's what they are too, when having done the one or the other, they combine or mediate these opposites. But this is a misunderstanding, for the true eternity lies not behind either or, but ahead of it. So their eternity will also be in a painful succession of moments in time, since they will have the double regret to live on. But Kierkegaardians would know. He wrote the above words from the point of view of the aesthete, the man who lives purely for aesthetic titillations of music, intellect, seduction, drama, and beauty. The aesthete's deepest fear is FOMO. For instance, boredom is a curse for such a man. It makes him confront the emptiness of his life and the meaninglessness of the fleeting moments, so he would do all he could to flee it. As he continues in Either Or, people of experience maintain that it is very sensible to start from a principle. I grant them that and start with the principle that all men are boring. For if my principle is true, to slacken or increase one's impetus, one need only consider with more or less moderation how ruinous boredom is for man. And if one wants to risk doing injury to the locomotive itself by pressing the speed to the maximum, one need only say to oneself, boredom is a root of all evil. Strange that boredom, so still and static, should have such power to set things in motion. The effect that boredom exercises is altogether magical, except that it is not one of attraction, but of repulsion. In aesthetic life, every choice, particularly in matters of love and romance, is inevitably a missed opportunity causing regret. For the aesthete, each choice is a negation to all other options. To make a choice is inevitably to miss out on what every other choice would have offered. Don Draper, John Hamm from Mad Men, is the typical aesthete in action. He loves his wife, yet struggles to be monogamous, as committing to one person doesn't align with his life of pursuing the immediate object. In Don's case, women. Don's life lies purely in the pursuit, and in fact, getting what he wants is his worst nightmare. Perhaps that's why he says,
"You're on top and you don't have enough. You're happy because you're successful, for now. But what is happiness? It's a moment before you need more happiness."
In Kierkegaard's dialectical work, either rule, the advice by Judge Wilhelm, the fictional author of the second text, or to Don would be to live by the principles of the ethical life, that is, a life of duty. It argued that one could find aesthetic value within the ethical life of the universal. Practically, this would entail living by the standards of social morality of one's society and culture, i.e. the typical bourgeois values of marriage, neighborliness, civic-mindedness, patriotism, etc. But one shouldn't read the progression from the aesthetic life to the ethical life as a linear, chronologically straightforward graduation through different stages of life. Such a reading diminishes Kierkegaard's existential theories to mere lifestyle choices, like which outfit you pick to wear before heading to work every morning. It implies you could have your cake and eat it too, where you could enjoy the aesthetic life while benefiting from the ethical life, seamlessly shifting between the two without any contradictions and obstacles. The Kierkegaardian stages of life have to be understood dialectically. This effectively means the contradictions and inherent paradoxes have to be subsumed or sublated into the stage, namely, the person living ethically has to embrace what the aesthete points out in either, about regret, uncertainty, boredom, etc., which are indisputably accurate human realities. So the ethical person choosing to marry has to acknowledge that by his choice he's leaving room for regret, and simply abiding by the social norms of his day and being a good, quote-unquote, dutiful husband doesn't guarantee a life free of regret. And the other realities the aesthete delineates. To be a dialectician is to be pessimistic when one should be optimistic, and vice versa. But the ethical person doesn't do this and finds false freedom in his ethical life. And here's where Kierkegaard introduces the religious stage, the only stage that forges a path for love. Love doesn't start from a place of absolute truth. It doesn't lie in the certainty of serving any universal good. Even if it does, it's a fortuitous byproduct. Love has no socio-metaphysical scaffoldings the ethical person can stand on and say, look, I'm getting married for the greater good of society and living by good bourgeois values. So when truly in love, we inevitably move to the Kierkegaardian religious stage, even if we aren't aware of our existential shift. In fact, you know you're there only in retrospect. Of course, none of this means love cannot serve the ethical and aesthetic. But these become secondary concerns when two lovers see the groundlessness of their relationship. The absurdity of love is why Badiou writes, beneath itself, it exists. Beyond itself, it inexists. It can always be said that it is an almost nothing of the state, or that it is a quasi-everything of the situation. If one determines its concept, if one determines its concept, the famous "so we are nothing, let's be everything." If one determines its concept, the famous "so we are nothing, let's be everything," nous, sommes, rien, soyons, tout, touches upon this point. In the last resort, it means let's be faithful to the event that we are. In our so-called permissive times, to be in love, commit to a person and foster a relationship, all the while knowing the nothingness love's suspended by, is a revolutionary act. Although this nothingness isn't an abstract entity, rather, to paraphrase Žižek, a positively charged void. It's something that's wholly experienced existentially, not merely cerebrally. Love doesn't lie on neutral grounds. It always begins with the contradictions and paradoxes of this Žižekian void. Hence, it's properly absurd because to love is to confront these realities, recognize there isn't a framework or meta-love language to work through inevitable conflicts and not shun away by hiding behind a universalistic ethic, i.e. marriage, polyamory, etc. And the love event is revolutionary because, firstly, love involves a separation or disjuncture based on the simple difference between two people and their infinite subjectivities. This disjuncture is, in most cases, sexual difference. When that isn't the case, love still ensures that two figures, two different interpretive instances, are set in opposition. In other words, love contains an initial element that separates, dislocates, and differentiates. You have two. Love involves two. Alain Badiou in Praise of Love. Footnote. For Badiou, authentic love is an event. Love always starts with an encounter, and I would give this encounter the quasi-metaphysical status of an event, namely of something that doesn't enter into the immediate order of things, as he continues in Praise of Love. The fact of two lovers, infinite subjectivities, encountering each other through difference and disjuncture gives the love event no place in the existing socio-symbolic order. End footnote. We see this datum most strikingly in literature and cinema. Romeo and Juliet is the archetypal story of our culture. In a balcony scene, Juliet says, "Deny thy father and refuse thy name. Or if thou wilt not, be but sworn my love, and I'll no longer be a Capulet." Such lines portray the transgressive nature of love because of the inherent difference involved in it. A family feud in the case of Romeo and Juliet. And it's an event because it subverts social norms, traditions, unspoken rules, and hierarchies, for better or worse. Love is something that doesn't enter into the immediate order of things. After all, love takes place in the world. It is an event that can't be predicted or calculated in terms of the world's laws. Such is why love can only last if treated as a truth procedure. It's a project that sublates every paradox, contradiction, and absurdity for a construction, a life that is being made no longer from the perspective of one, but from the perspective of two. The truth of love doesn't negate the two lovers. It's a truth that sits both within and without each person. Indeed, Kierkegaard's aesthete would be quite disappointed with the nature of lasting love because, to paraphrase Žižek, while the pursuit is fun, seducing is exhilarating, and passionate sex is beautiful, love begins the next day when the two lovers have to patiently build a new life together if they choose to fully assume the fall. It's here the project of love begins, as they construct a new truth with daily habits, simple gestures, and conversations, e.g., who's doing the dishes, delegating chores, planning date night, making a cup of coffee for your partner, etc. So love that lasts is modest, which is why its mundanity cannot be portrayed in Hollywood movies. But that makes it sublime. In that vein, when two people are deeply in love, sex isn't the utmost priority for them. Of course, not that lovers don't have great sex, but their relationship does not live and die by the so-called quality of sex, which yet again, the love industrial complex commodifies and exploits. Isn't this what makes love metaphysical and contradicts the evolutionary claims of naturalists? Those who say love is a mere facade for a species to reproduce cannot explain how love can exist independent of the sexual relationship. Isn't love what denaturalizes our subjects? And here, love must be understood via the lens of transcendental materialism, which Adrian Johnston defines as a thesis making possible the articulation of what could be called a transcendental materialist theory of subjectivity. Is that the choice between either a disembodied subject or an embodied self is a false dilemma. Cogito-like subjectivity ontogenetically emerges out of an originally corporeal condition. As its anterior ground, although once generated, this sort of subjectivity thereafter remains irreducible to its material sources. Hence, in terms of its overall contribution to the theoretical humanities, this project aims to open up pathways allowing for productive cooperation between, on the other hand, the plethora of investigations into the somatic constitution of the human individual, including cognitive science, neurology, and phenomenological embodiment theory, and, on the other hand, accounts of identity insisting upon a more than corporeal dimension, particularly as found in certain philosophical and psychoanalytic traditions. The combination of a consideration of the natural of the human body with a temporal genetic model of emergent subjectivity, a model charting the imminent material genesis of the thereafter more than material transcendent, has the potential to shift fundamentally the terms of today's ongoing debates over the relation between soma and psyche. This rather technically charged and mouthful excerpt is from Adrian Johnston's book, Žižek's Ontology. Okay, back to the essay. The true procedure of love that's irreducible to any physicalist explanation knows something spiritual or platonic and detached from our material reality is what makes it metaphysical. The next section is Hegel and the Ontology of Love. If you want to listen to it, I will be uploading the next video or the next part soon onto the playlist, which is in the description down below. Thanks for watching. Cheers.